Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne, and this is episode 140. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit like, follow, or subscribe on the platform you're listening to us on. You can also check out my work at theloudest.com on the planet, knac.com, for exclusive hard rock and heavy metal interviews, live show coverage, and more. My guest for this episode is guitarist and solo artist Lance Lopez. His latest album, Trouble Is Good, is out now through Cleopatra Records. Lance is in the middle of a tour called Trouble on Tour, and he took a few moments in between to talk more about his latest album and more. So here's Lance Lopez. If I knew absolutely nothing about Lance Lopez, how would you describe your music to me?
Oh, man, it's just hard edge, classic Texas blues rock, blues rock, heavy blues rock. I try to channel all the influences that I have, and that's just the way that it comes out. I'm a blues guitar player and singer at heart, but I also have a massive rock influence as well as R&B and soul and blues. So, it all kind of translate out into a heavy style of blues rock.
And I think that certainly comes out on your latest album, Trouble Is Good. It's out now on Cleopatra Records. Your last album was Tell the Truth back in 2018. Besides a global lockdown, was there a reason why such a large gap between releases?
Yeah, I mean, during Tell the Truth, I took a break to refocus on my wellness and my health. I'd kind of been pushing it really hard, and I needed to recenter and take care of myself and do some self-care and some wellness. So I took kind of a break, was going through a divorce, moved to Nashville, kind of a reset situation altogether. And right as we were getting ready to get started, we were making plans to make a record and to go back on the road, and then COVID hit. So then that extremely slowed us down. So there was a break. There was about a year break there. And then, as we got started back, COVID happened. So we utilized that time during COVID to make this record. So it was kind of piecemealed together and done all during that time, because we didn't know what was going to happen, so we just kept pushing forward and making a record. And really it was an era piece around, that whole time period.
And when you say we, you're talking about yourself and your co-writer and co-producer, JOEY SYKES, I assume?
Correct. Yeah. JOEY SYKES and I began working together about 10 years ago out in LA. And when I was in a band called SUPERSONIC BLUES MACHINE, and we worked together during that time. So yeah, we'd had some history working together. And so we just worked directly together on this record, and we started to exchange ideas, and then then tracks began to come together, and great iconic players began to show up and play on these tracks. So it became an amazing situation altogether. It was how it just all came together all during that time when we didn't know what was going to happen at all.
And speaking of great performers appearing on the album, you have GREGG BISSONETTE on drums for your lead single, Jam With Me. If you want to talk a little bit about the song and how you got Greg involved.
Well, Greg, came to be with JOEY SYKES. That was a JOEY SYKES connection there, and Joey had him record on the basic track in LA, and it was an idea that we had been throwing back and forth, and then it lyrically came together with what we were feeling. I had a house that I was working on the songs originally at, called the Jam House here in Nashville, and then I moved to where I'm currently standing in the middle of right now, the House of Tone, which is we have a couple other guitar players here, lots of guitars and amps, and so we finished the record really here at the House of Tone. I was working on the tracks here, and Joey sent the track with Bissonette on it, and I was just completely floored. I couldn't believe that, he showed up to play and played on this track, and it was incredible. So, I first saw him with David Lee Roth when I was a little kid, with Steve Vai and Billy Sheehan playing in the band, and it was just mind blowing, So, what an honor it was to get to work with him, and now he's currently on the road with Ringo Starr. So it was amazing.
Do you have another song that you're planning on putting out as a promotional single from the album?
I think we're looking at Uncivil War at this point. I think that's going to be our next video and single that's coming out. We're happy about that, and it's kind of a heavy song. You know, it kind of goes all across the map. You can apply it to a lot of different things, but you know, a part of that, a lot of that was my healing, getting through, you know, a divorce and, you know, separation and everything that goes with that. But then also too, with what was going on in the world currently at that time during, you know, everything that was happening around us. So, you know, it can go a lot of different directions.
Absolutely. Some say this is sort of a change or leaning towards Southern rock versus kind of your classic blues style that you began with. Is that accurate?
That's pretty accurate. Yeah. I mean, you know, being called a blues rock artist, I wanted to, you know, emphasize the rock side of blues rock, you know. I think that progressive music in other genres has worked. I mean, I live here in Nashville, so I look at country music and I look how progressive it is today versus when I was a little kid. My grandmother took me to see Waylon Jennings and George Jones. You know, that country music is completely different from what's happening today. And so I feel like that's also the blues being pushed forward again with really, you know, for me also too, this was delving back into some retro sounds and doing some retro modern type of situations, especially with some of the sonic sounds and some of the things we were doing, trying to really carry that legacy on as well. You know, so just really trying to encompass and translate this music the best way we could. And while the pandemic was happening and everything was happening, it was like, let's just make a record, and regardless of what the style or the song or the whatever, you know, it was like, this is how it was all coming out. It was kind of hard times. So there's a lot of rock and roll. I mean, it was hard rock because it was hard times.
The new album is available streaming, CDs. You got a fantastic looking orange vinyl. Is this your first album on vinyl or your second album on vinyl?
It's the second album on vinyl. Tell the Truth came out on vinyl. Yeah, we had that on vinyl as well. So, but this is the first one that's been a custom style design like this. So it's pretty exciting.
Are you a vinyl fan yourself?
I am. I have a lot of vinyl. And I don't get a chance to sit down and listen to as much as I like anymore, but yeah, no, I'm absolutely a vinyl fan, and I was really excited to get a lot of my old favorite bands remastered and on vinyl. So that's always exciting for me.
You're currently on the Trouble on tour. You have a gig tonight that you mentioned prior to the interview, and you're mainly hitting the southern part of the United States. Are you gonna make your way up north and to the east at some point?
We are. We're planning on touring the East Coast in I think in November. So we're trying to make our way to New England and all down, you know, around New York and New Jersey and all up in New England around November. So we're working on it right now. We have a lot of stuff in the works. So the best place to find that is lancelopez.net, and there's a tour dates button. And just click on the tour dates button. We have a bands in town calendar. It's being updated every day. Shows are coming in every day. So yeah, please go to lancelopez.net tour dates, and please come out to the show.
How much of the new material are you playing live?
It's going to be a lot of it. I mean, it's going to be a mixture of what we're going to be able to pull off versus with a smaller band. You know, it's going to be real interesting to see how the songs are going to translate with a 3-piece or a 4-piece band. It's a pretty large sound on the album. So some of these songs are going to take different forms and take different shapes and morph and kind of turn into some cool things and kind of really kind of just turn into some fun new songs probably live. So we're really excited about doing that. So we're going to be doing pretty much as the new record as we can.
Who's in your live band?
We got a couple of different guys I'm working with right now. I got local Nashville musicians, and one of which from Texas is RJ Contreras, who's formerly with Reverend Horton Heat, and he's been out with JD McPherson opening for Robert Plant and Alison Krauss. So he's going to come out on some selected dates with us. So we're really excited about that.
You cite ZZ Top's Billy Gibbons as a mentor of yours. How did you first meet Billy, and how did that relationship come together?
I met Billy in Dallas, Texas, in the early '90s. We met. I was playing. I got invited to come down to a blues jam at a place called the Greenville Bar and Grill in Dallas, and next door was an Italian restaurant called Torelli's, and Billy was next door with a date having Italian food, and I got up to sit in at the blues jam, and I played a set of Jimi Hendrix song. I played like Purple Haze and Foxy Lady and all these different songs, and Billy was eating dinner, and he heard through the wall that someone was playing Jimi Hendrix, and he got up from his dinner and he came next door, and I got done playing, and as soon as I finished, I hit the last note. The manager of Greenville Bar and Grill grabbed me and was pulling me off the stage. And I thought I was in trouble. Like I thought I was too young to be in there. Like I was, oh no, I'm getting thrown out. And he grabbed me. He was like, somebody needs to talk to you. And he pulled me in halfway back to the back of the room. I saw the silhouette of Gibbons in the, in the shadows. And I went, oh wow, I can't be Billy Gibbons. And sure enough, and he just kind of shoved me at him, and then Billy lowered his sunglasses and he just leaned in and he goes, Jimi Hendrix was a friend of mine. And the rest is history.
Well, you got ties to Jimi Hendrix, don't you? Your first album.
Oh, absolutely.
Your first album was produced by Buddy Miles, who was in Hendrix Band of Gypsies, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I spent a lot of time with Buddy. I lived with Buddy in Fort Worth, Texas, back in the '90s. We had a killer house there. We wrote a lot of music, of which I still use today. I mean, we have ideas that we wrote back in the '90s that I've used on every record I've ever made and still use today. I mean, I've still not even used all of it. That's how much music Buddy and I wrote together. So, and then Billy Cox is here in Nashville as well. So I run into Billy from time to time, and he's a very, very good friend, longtime friend. Again, we go back to the '90s. So just a great privilege to be a part of that circle and to be a part of that world and to learn so much from those gentlemen.
You were a member of Supersonic Blues Machine. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, from 2016 to 2018. Are you still in touch with those guys, or did it not end amicably?
No, I mean I don't talk to them as much anymore these days. No, we're not in contact. I mean, everything's cool. We kind of, everything was kind of squared up on on that end. So, it's all good as far as that's concerned. I haven't spoke to them in several years. As a matter of fact, I heard Kenny Aronoff had some great things going, as far as I heard about some new records he played on, and Kenny and I are great friends. So yeah, it was an interesting situation, and one day I will talk about what all happened, but yeah, just as far as for now, yeah, man, it was a good thing for a season, and on to the next thing.
You didn't need 2 divorces in your life, right?
I didn't. I mean, there was plenty.
Would you ever consider doing like another band project again down the road with other musicians?
Absolutely. I'm currently working with a band called Two Wolf. That's an offshoot of the old Blackfoot band with Ricky Medlock and Greg T. Walker and Jackson Spires. Greg T. Walker's is pretty much his band, and we play a lot of Blackfoot material. Yeah, and so we have a great band there. Also have a band with Peter Keys from Leonard Skinner called All the King's Horses. And we're working on tracks for both of those projects here in Nashville currently. So yeah, stay tuned for those. It's some pretty serious, heavy Southern rock. Some, the All the King's Horses is all over the place. It's Southern rock to funk to New Orleans, Dr. John style. And, Peter Keys doing a lot of Dr. John style songs. So it's very, very interesting. We have some other great, I can't talk about it too much, but we got some other really great musicians in All the King's Horses. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be really cool.
Well, it sounds like after your break, you're making a pretty decent comeback with these projects and your latest solo album, which is Trouble Is Good, out now on Cleopatra Records. Fantastic record, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me about it today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on the show, and I look forward to seeing you guys hopefully in November.
Yeah, I'll be there, man. You come close, I'll be there.
Awesome. You guys
All
take
right.
care.
Once again, I want to thank Lance Lopez for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out his latest album, Trouble is Good, out now through Cleopatra Records. Head over to your favorite music streaming app, take a listen to the album. If you like what you hear, buy a physical copy, support the artist. For all things Lance Lopez, head over to his official website, lancelopez.net. I also want to thank John Lappin of Lappin Enterprises and Cleopatra Records for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. Discover your next favorite artist on the Rock is George podcast.